I'm happy to start there. It's obviously
Right?
in the middle of the sugya. It's hard, it's very hard to know where to
Yeah, yeah,
start.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So we'll start from Meitve. So we're going to start 3 lines from the bottom of Chaf Vav Amud Bet. And remember the background real quickly is that the Mishnah yesterday said that if you put a natsnu agavi kevesh, right? You put the blood on the ramp of the mizbeach or in the wrong place in the mizbeach or above the line, below the line, in the wrong place, right? Then it's pasul the ein bo karet. So it's wrong, but you don't get karet for doing that. So yesterday Shmuel was the first opinion, and Shmuel explained that the reason that you are not chayav that you're puzzle basically is that you did the wrong place, obviously, right? So for sure, the second part was Shmuel was of the opinion that any dam that's put in the wrong place still counts as long as you put it on the mizbeach anywhere, even if it's the wrong place in the mizbeach. So Shmuel therefore said that when the Mishnah said puzzle, it only meant that it's puzzle that you can't eat the meat, but you do get a kapara, right? So it actually is not completely puzzle. It's only partially puzzle, but not completely puzzle. And we had a bunch of questions on Shmuel yesterday, and we're going to repeat the last one, which I think Ken probably already did yesterday, but it'll be a review for him. So Meitvei, Ken Shavuot, we're starting 3 lines in the bottom of Chaf Vav Amud Bet. We're going to do a little review. So Meitvei, so we have a question now from a Mishnah
Starting.
on
Can I
this
get
page.
log in? Can I get log?
The Mishnah says,
is it working? I don't know if
the Mishnah says,
I don't know if I hear anybody.
right? If a person has the machshava, now he hasn't done anything. So unlike our Mishnah, which talks about where you did it wrong, this later Mishnah talks about where you think about doing it wrong. So you have a machshava to put the blood. Let's say you shech the animal. You think I've got to go take the blood and I'm going to put it on the top part of the mizbeach or the bottom part where it's not supposed to be. So then, if you think about doing an altar, you think I'm going to do it today, basically, then it's kosher. The animal is kosher because you didn't do anything wrong. Presumably, you then continue the avoda, you did the zrika, and you did the right part of the mizbeach. So if you did it right, then everything is okay. But if later in your after, so let's say in the shechita, you have a different room. Like,
go to the tent.
we'll try it again here. Sorry.
Oh,
So basically, you did the
frozen.
shechita.
Frozen. He's frozen. He's frozen.
So you did the shechita of the carbon with a thought while you were doing the shechita that you were going to put the blood in the wrong place, right? Right away. You then go ahead and you put the blood in the right place. So then it's kosher. The thought didn't matter because the only thoughts that matter, we'll see in a minute, are thoughts about chutz lizmano and chutz limkomo, but not wrong place. Then you continued and you did, let's say, Kabbalah or holacha or zrika, the thought to eat the meat or to sprinkle the blood on the wrong day, which is chutz zmano, or the wrong time, which is chutz l'mkomo, which is a regular pigel, right? So it continues the Braita, the last words now. Chazar v'chishev, you then have a new machshava to do it chutz l'mkomo. That's pasul. Remember, chutz l'mkomo is a psul, but there's no karet, embo karet, top line of chaf zayin. But if your thought is to do it chutz l'zmano, then it's pigol v'chayav and alav karet. So that's a mishnah later. So far, it makes sense. Okay, so you had a machshava. You're going to do the blood. You're going to sprinkle in the wrong place. You end up sprinkling it in the right place. But when you sprinkle it, you think I'm going to eat it in 2 days. That's pigol. So that's totally fine. Continues the mishnah, second line now. If you think to do it lemachar, you think I am going to shech the blood with the intent that I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow on the wrong part of the mizbeach. So now the question is that pigel or not, right? Tomorrow should be pigel, but the wrong part of the mizbeach might not be pigel. Because remember, pigel is only if you do something that otherwise was completely good, right? So if I had a machshava, tomorrow I'm going to take the blood and put it off, I don't know, far away, that's not pigel. So the question is this pigel? So says the Mishnah, pasul, it is pasul because you have a machshava to do it in the wrong place tomorrow. But if you're then chazar v'chishev, you then go and have another machshava, let's say later in the avoda, bein chutz l'zmano, bein chutz l'mkomo, that is pasul, ve'ein bo karet, right? Because, presumably, remember, pigol only works if everything else was done properly. Karev hamatir k'mitzvato, the rest was done properly. So here, because you initially thought, I'm going to shech the animal, I'm shechting the animal with the intent of sprinkling the blood higher than I'm supposed to or lower than I'm supposed to tomorrow. Because it's pasul, it won't become pigul afterwards. But ask the Gemara on Shmuel, if Shmuel says that where you place it is not really that relevant, hi psul, why do you say it's pasul? It's pigul. If you have a thought, I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow, that's pigul, as long as the blood's being done properly. And even though you're thinking of doing it in the wrong place, the reality according to Shmuel is that the wrong place doesn't matter. Answers the Gemara Mar Zutra, fifth line now. The truth is that although Shmuel said you can do it in the wrong place, all he meant was that it's not terrible if you do it in the wrong place, meaning you'll get a kapara. You can't eat it according to Shmuel. So since you can't eat it, it's not perfect to do it in the wrong place, and therefore it won't become pigul. So read that inside. Zrika the shaya basar b'achila ma'tilei pigul. If the zrika allows you to actually eat the meat, meaning it's done perfectly, then it could lead to pigul. Zrika de loshaya basar b'achila l'ma'tilei pigul. But this kind of zrika, although Shmuel says it's not terrible, and you are getting a kapara, you can't eat it, and since you can't eat it, that ruins it from being possible to have pigul. So that's the answer. Says Rav Ashi to Mar Zutra now, around 8 lines down, that sounds like a great distinction, but how do you know it? Minalacha, how do you know this? And he answered, Amarle, I think the Shita adds, Amarle, dichtiv, because it says in the pasuk, if you can eat, if you have a mind to eat the meat, pigol yihiyeh. What that tells you is that misha pigulo garamlo, something where you should have eaten it, you can't eat it because it's pigul. But yatzazesh ain't pigulo garamlo. Exclude this because it's not the pigul that caused it. Ela iser davar acher garamlo. It's something else. And so therefore, according to Shmuel, although it's okay, meaning you get a kapara, it's not okay that you can actually eat it. And since you can't actually eat it, it can't become pigul. And that's how he understands the whole Mishnah. Says the Gemara, well, why is it puzzle then? But I don't get it. Why is it even puzzle? Right? Because remember, you had a machshava during the shechita that tomorrow you're going to sprinkle it in the wrong place. So you're telling me, well, that can't make it pigul. Well, if it can't make it pigul, then maybe it shouldn't count at all. Since, in fact, 30 seconds later, you sprinkled it in the right place, right? So since you changed it and you did the right thing, why is it even puzzle? And this is where Rav Nachman of Bar Yitzchak said that actually it's very similar, midi dahavi, a machshavet hinuach. It's similar to a machshava that you're going to leave the blood. So meaning, your thought, let's say you'd shecht an animal, instead of saying, I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow, you say, I'm not going to do anything with the blood till tomorrow. I'm just going to leave it. So if you had said, I'm going to sprinkle it tomorrow, that would be pigul, and you get chayav kari. But if you just say, I'm going to leave it, then it's just puzzle. And that's aliba, where my aliba to Rav Yehuda, which we're going to have this opinion later on Daf Lamed Hey. This is the opinion of Rav Yehuda, that if you have a machshavet hinuach, machshavet, I'm going to leave the blood, it just becomes puzzle. So that
we
was
learned yesterday that it was kosher, but you couldn't eat it. You get a kapara for
correct.
it. You get a kapara,
Correct.
but you don't. But it can't be eaten, so it's not completely pasul.
Correct. It's some, well, the Mishnah says the word puzzle, but what does the Mishnah mean by the word puzzle? It means that you can't eat it. Correct. Exactly what it means. So that is correct.
For it. It can be brought, and one who brings it gets kapara. That's the way we learned it yesterday.
Correct. Again, just to clarify, Ken, so that was yesterday's Mishnah. The Mishnah we're quoting from later is where you did a 2-step process because they wanted to confuse it. You first had a machshava when you were shechting it to sprinkle the blood in the wrong place. And then later in the process, you had a machshava, you're going to do it in the wrong time. So then you actually passed the whole carpet. So there you might not even get a kapara, but because the first step was enough to say that you couldn't eat it, it can't be chayav pigul. That's what we're saying. So it's not chayav pigul, but it's not kosher because it's messed up partially.
But what we learned in the Mishnah when we concluded yesterday is that there was kapara for it, but it could not be eaten.
Correct. That's our Mishnah. Correct. That is Shmuel's opinion. Says Reish Lakish today. So now we're at the Gimel, a third of the way down. Reish Lakish says, I have a whole different opinion than Shmuel. That what we can just summarize for us is Shmuel's opinion from yesterday. Reish Lakish says, I actually agree with Shmuel in many ways. But in fact, I think that when the Mishnah says it's puzzle, it means you can't eat it either. I'm sorry, you can't get a kapara either. La'olam psul means mamish, meaning you get complete, if the Mishnah says the word pasul, Pasul sounds pasul. It doesn't sound like it's partially pasul and partially okay. So really, when the Mishnah says it's pasul, it means pasul mamish. But you know what? I also agree with Shmuel, says Rish Lakish, that shelo b'mekomo ki mekomodam. That shechting and sprinkling blood in the wrong place is like the right place, meaning as long as you're on the mizbeach, it's fine. So then why is it not get a kapara, like Shmuel said? Lokasha, the reason it doesn't get a kapara is because it depends on whether kanchanitam b'shtika, kanchanitam ba'amira. It depends on whether you put it on the mizbeach quietly, right? Or not you put on mizbeach, you shecht it quietly, or you shecht it ba'amira, meaning when the Mishnah says kosher, pasul, the reason the Mishnah says it's pasul is because not only did you put the blood in the wrong place, but when you shechted the animal, you said, I am shechting this animal in order to put the blood in the wrong place. And by saying that, you pasul the animal, right? And you don't get a kapara or anything. And that's why our Mishnah just said the word pasul. When the Braita later, and the Mishnah later, implies that you still get a kapara, or what Shmuel said, that's if you do it without saying anything, meaning you shech the animal properly, you don't say anything wrong, and you put the blood in the wrong place. So if you put the blood in the wrong place, according to Reish Lakish, it's just like Shmuel. It's okay, you get a kapara, but you don't get to eat the meat. But our Mishnah was referring to a case where you said, I am going to put the blood in the wrong place, and the saying of it actually makes the whole thing pasul. So that is the opinion of Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish, though, otherwise agrees with Shmuel, and if we had time, which we don't, the Gemara would ask all the questions that we asked on Shmuel from the top line of Daf Chav Vav Amabet till this line, but our Gemara saves us the time, and it says, look back, reference the earlier Gemara, okay? So I'll read that inside. It says the following. It says, V'tznan, Tanya, now we have a Braita, Chishev l'tena tanitanim l'mata l'mata, etc., etc., etc. You see the hey, ... An mitidhav machshav tinuach malivad Rabbi Yehuda. So basically, all of the questions that we asked on Shmuel are the same questions on Reish Lakish, and the answers are the same answers. So if you need to know that, go back and review yesterday's daf. So that is the second opinion. That's Reish Lakish's opinion. Rabbi Yochanan has a completely different opinion. It says Rabbi Yochanan, I disagree with Shmuel and Reish Lakish. And I actually am of the opinion that if you take blood and put it on the Mizbeach in the wrong place, it's like you did nothing. Okay? Well, actually, I'm wrong when I said that. It's not like you did nothing, but you have accomplished nothing. But it's actually worse than doing nothing because you put it on the Mizbeach, but you didn't put it in the right place. So says Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan says that in fact, both cases, meaning a case where we said in our Mishnah, if you put the blood in the wrong place, it's pasul, and a case where we said if you put the blood in the wrong place, pick up the blood, right, and put it on the mizbeach. Those were both cases where you were shtika, and in fact says not pick up the blood. Sorry, take more blood from the animal. Right, that was the question. You put the wrong blood on the mizbeach. If there's more blood left, go do it again. Right, that was the case we had yesterday. So that case implying you can fix it, and our Mishnah implying you can't fix it. It depends on whether there's any more blood left. Says Rabbi Yochanan, "Shelo b'mekomo lav k'mekomo dam." Putting blood on the wrong place in the mizbeach is like doing nothing. Right? V'ha di'ika dama nefesh, hadaleka dama nefesh. It depends whether there's more blood from the animal to put on the mizbeach. Meaning, let's say you put the blood in the wrong place and there's no blood left to put on the right place, it's pasul. And you don't even get a kapara. You can't eat it, you can't get a kapara according to Rabbi Yochanan. If there's extra blood, then go get more blood from the animal and put it on the right part of the mizbeach. And that's where the Mishnah yesterday said you can fix it. So Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Reish Lakish and Shmuel and says that blood that's put in the wrong place in the mizbeach is nothing. You don't get any credit for that. You don't even get a kapara. Okay? So that's Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemara, well, then I don't understand our Mishnah. Because if you recall, the last words in our Mishnah on the bottom of Chaf Vav Amabet were, if you put in the wrong place, pasul, the ein bo karet. It's pasul, but you don't get karet. Says the Gemara, I don't understand why does it say that, right? So remember, karet refers to if you have a machshava of doing it in the wrong time, the wrong place. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you just poured the blood in the wrong place. Of course, you don't get karet. What connection is karet? So let's read that inside. Bishlam Reish Lakish, who says our Mishnah is referring to a case where you had a machshava, you said words. I'm shechting it in order to put the blood in the wrong place. That's what we're telling you. Because although you said that That's not pigol, and it's not chayiv karet. El Rabbi Yochanan, my imbo karet. Of course, there's no karet. You just did nothing. You just poured the blood in the wrong place. It's like dumping it out in the bathroom, right? I mean, it's wrong. You don't get a kapara, but you don't get karet. So kasha. Actually, the language of karet doesn't make a lot of sense. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it really only makes sense according to Reish Lakish. Says what about Shmuel? Well, Shmuel, my ein bo karet. Why would Shmuel, remember Shmuel's case in the Mishnah didn't have to do with this at all. So why is it saying you didn't have any machshava? So why is it saying ein bo karet? Hachikam. Now this is what Shmuel would read the Mishnah. Im natan b'machshava asul. If you put the blood with a machshava, meaning at the time you shechted, you thought I'm going to put the blood in the wrong place, and then you put it in the wrong place, it's pasul. Vein bo karet. It's possible, but there's no karet. So Shmuel actually understands the Mishnah the same way, really, like Reish Lakish. Ask the Gemara now. So basically, we have a big machloka about whether putting blood in the wrong place is an act or not. According to both Shmuel yesterday and Reish Lakish today, nitina shelo b'mekoma is nitina. Lo b'mekomo ki mekomo dami, right? According to Rabbi Yochanan, putting the blood in the ramp, which is not the mizbeach, is like doing nothing. Says the Gemara, but I got a problem with that. The Rabbi Yochanan, now 8 lines in the bottom, Isha lo b'mekomo lav ki mekomo dami. If putting the blood on the mizbeach, on the ramp, or below when it's supposed to be above, is like doing nothing, lahavi ki nishpach min hakli ala ritzpah. Why can't it be like the case we had in the Mishnah, I think 3 days ago maybe, where you poured the blood onto the floor of the azara? And remember, we had a discussion then, and we said that if you had already accepted it in a kli, and then it's spilled onto the floor, you can actually pick it up from the floor. So if the mizbeach is nothing, then, meaning the wrong part of the mizbeach, let that be the floor. So why can't you just pick up the blood? Now, maybe you can, but the Mishnah didn't say that. Mishnah should have said, and if there's blood left, pick it up and do it right. So why don't you say that it's like pouring the blood from a kli onto the floor via svenu, and you can gather it up and do it? Says the Gemara, well, because he suffered like a mandam lo yasfenu. In fact, there's a machloket about this, and there's an opinion that you cannot gather it up, and that is the opinion of Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. I'm Rabbi Yochanan, 5 lines on the bottom. That, let me just give you the background here, which is that remember, if you took a bucket of blood and you poured it on the floor of the azara, almost everyone agreed that you can pick up some of that blood and put it on the mizbeach. The question here is, you put blood on the ramp, let's say, or on the top when you're supposed to put it on the bottom, right? Can you then pick up that blood? And we're going to see that there's a machloket about this, but there's one opinion that's going to say that even though you put it in the wrong place and it doesn't work, the mizbeach is kolate. Kolate means it absorbs it. And because the mizbeach absorbs it, you can never get that blood back from the mizbeach. So unlike dropping blood on the floor where you can pick it up, blood on the mizbeach might actually be worse in the sense that once it's touched the mizbeach, it doesn't work for you, but it's out of bounds and you can't pick it up. And that, is the opinion we're about to quote. What is the opinion? 5 lines on the bottom. Hakol modim, everyone agrees, meaning all the Tanaim we'll see in a second, agree that if you have a korban that's nitnin lemala, it's supposed to be placed above the chod hasikra, above the middle of the mizbeach. And it was natan and it was put on top, natan lemala, and you put it in the right place. Or lemata shenatan lemata, right? So you put the blood in the right place, but you didn't do it properly. What didn't you do properly? You used your left hand, or you were sitting, right? Shelo kimitzvatan. Then, since you put it in the right place, that blood is now out of bounds. Lo yasfenu. You cannot gather up that blood and do it again. You're out of luck. You can't do it over. Lo nechleku, but the Tanaim disagree about a case where you put it in the wrong place. B'nitnin lemala, it's supposed to be put above, but you put it below. Shnitnan lamata, or it's supposed to be lamata shniten lamala. And there, Rabbi Yossi says, lo yasvenu, you can't gather it up because once you touch the mizbeach, it's off out of limits. And Rabbi Shimon said, yasvenu, that in fact, since you put in the wrong part of the mizbeach, you can gather it up. And Mishnatenu, so turn the page to Daf Chav Zayin Amud Bet. According to this understanding in Rabbi Yochanan, our Mishnah would have to be Kedivrei Homer Lo Yasvenu, like the opinion that you can't gather it up. So even though, says Rabbi Yochanan, putting the blood on the ramp does nothing, it does something. The something it does is that you can't ever use that blood again. So if you put it in the ramp, you can't pick up the blood and go put it on the top of the mizbeach. It's out of bounds. And that's one answer. And the other one's very similar. It says Rav Chisda Amar Rabbi, the second line, that it's not, I agree with you, but it's a little different. Let me read it this way. Hakol Modim, everybody, both Tanaim, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, right? Yeah, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon, sorry. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, sorry. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, the other Girsot, agree that if you have blood, nitnin lemata, it's supposed to be put below the line. And it was nitanan lemala. You put it in the wrong, put it higher up. Everyone agrees, shelo yasvenu. You cannot touch that blood and use it for the zrika. The kol shekain b'nitnin lemala shenatan lemata. And certainly if it's blood that was supposed to be put on top, that was put below, why kol shekain? It says the word because ho v'damim elyonim lemata him ba'im. Remember, if you have gravity, if you pour your blood on the top of the Mizbeach, it's going to drip to the bottom of the Mizbeach, right? So even though the Torah says put it on top, the fact that you put it on the bottom is close to the top because top blood drops to the bottom. So certainly in that case, you are basically putting the blood out of limits. You know where they argue? If the blood is supposed to be done inside, or the meat, let's say, because not a lot of blood is done inside, but some is, that was done outside. So you did it instead of doing inside the Kodesh, you did it inside the Azara, or the opposite. There, the question is, can you pick up the blood from the Mizbeach and go put it in the right place? Right? Let's say Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol forgot that he's supposed to bring the blood inside, which would be very unfortunate, right? And he sprinkled the blood on the outside Mizbeach. So that is not even close to the inside Mizbeach. So you might think that you can pick up that blood and go inside and do it inside. And there is a machloket. Rabbi Yossi Amar Yasvenu. Yossi says, in fact, you can. And Rabbi Shimon Amar Lo Yasvenu. But either way, everyone agrees. Not everyone. One, in this opinion, everyone agrees. And in the first opinion, at least one Tana agrees that if you put blood on the top of the Mizbeach when it's supposed to be on the bottom, or on the ramp when it's supposed to be on the Mizbeach, there is an opinion that you no longer can recycle that blood. And that must be the way our Mishnah holds, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak.
You were talking about putting it on the bottom and it goes to the top. It can't go to the top.
Correct. Blood on the bottom cannot go up, but blood on the top is going to go down to the bottom. But that, we're not talking about where the blood goes, because it's actually not where the blood drips to, it's where the blood was placed initially, right? Meaning, if blood is supposed to be on the bottom, you put it on top, you're not Yotzei, even though eventually the top blood is going to go to the bottom. Our point only is the Mizbeach absorbing of this blood? So it seems very likely that blood that's supposed to be put on the top, on the bottom, blood that's supposed to be put on the top, that was placed on the bottom, will be absorbed by the Mizbeach, because blood on the top always goes to the bottom. So you're actually putting it somewhere where it will eventually go. The question is, if blood that's supposed to be put on the bottom was put on the opposite. Blood that's supposed to put on the top was put on the bottom. No, I get it right. Blood that was supposed to put on the bottom, put on the top, because you didn't place it where it was supposed to go. It might not be absorbed by the Mizbeach, but in fact it is. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Afanan Amitanina. Says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, we actually have a Braita which supports this statement about what placed on the Mizbeach actually matters, because this is what the Braita says. And again, this Braita is supporting the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is that blood that's put in the wrong place is as if it was not put anywhere. Okay? So if you put the blood above when it's supposed to be below, or in the ramp, it doesn't count, right? So where do you see that in the following Braita? Because here says the Braita, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, there's a very interesting pasuk about the carbon ola. And the pasuk says, Zot hi ha'ola. This, now each of these words is a miyat, right? Zot means this and nothing else. He means this and nothing else. And ha-ola, when you have a hey, you always limit it. This ola, not something else. Says Rabbi Yehuda, Hare elu shlosha miutim, Hare elu miutim. Does he add somewhere? I can't read. Hare elu gimel, yeah, on the side he says, Hare elu shlosha miutim. These are three limitations, we'll call it. And what are they excluding? Now, there's a very important halacha, which we'll get to more, that although you're not supposed to do certain things, if you put something on the Mizbeach, once it's on the Mizbeach, you burn it on the Mizbeach. You don't take it down. Meaning, even if the carbon is pasul, or it became pasul after it went on the Mizbeach, or if it became pasul before it went on the Mizbeach, once it's on the Mizbeach, you're supposed to burn it and not take it down, except for three things now. Prat li nishchata b'layla. One exception is if it was shechted at night. That's not even a carbon. So if you brought the animal up on the Mizbeach, take it down. Shenishbach damaf, all the blood was poured out and you have no blood to put on the Mizbeach. but you just have the parts on the mizbeach. You gotta just take it down and throw it away because there's no kapara. And sheyatza dam chutz l'klaim. And if the blood left outside the Beit Hamikdash, in all those cases, im alta terei, even if the meat went up on the mizbeach by mistake, you don't burn it, you take it down. Okay, now again, you'll see why this is relevant to us in a second. Rabbi Shimon says, no, I understand the pasuk a little bit differently. I read the pasuk the following way. Ola, right? It says the word ola, which means ein li ella ola kshera. That from that pasuk, I only know that an ola that's kosher, that's put on the mizbeach, is burned on the mizbeach. Minayin l'rabot all the other bad olot, meaning shenishchata b'layla, if you shecht it at night, or shenishbach dama, or you spill out the blood, or sheyatza dama chutz l'klam, and then he adds a further list. V'halan, right, an animal that stayed overnight, so it's not supposed to do that, right? It stayed on the mizbeach. Hayotze, it was taken outside and brought back in. Hatamnei, an animal that's tamnei, or shenishchat chutz l'zmano, it was done with the wrong intention, or chutz l'mkomo, right? And that's one of those is pigol, or shekiblu psulin, or a puzzle person accepted the blood. So this carbon is not kosher, but the meat made it to the mizbeach, and according to this opinion, you burn it anyways. Or zarku et dama, the apostle sprinkled the blood. Hanitanim lemala shenitanan lemata. Carbonot that are supposed to be done above that were done below. So you see from here that doing in the wrong place is a real psul, which is Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, right? Or nitanim lamata shenatan lamala, or nitanim bifnim shenatan b'chutz. They're supposed to be done inside, but was done outside. Or nitanim b'chutz shenatan bifnim. Or Pesach ba'achatat sheshachtan shelo lishman, which we know are puzzle, right? That was our first mission of our Masechet. That you do a chatas or a Pesach for the wrong person, but all of these cases, says Rabbi Yehuda, sorry, not Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Shimon, minayin, how do you know that they also can be burned on the Mizbeach? Talmud Lomar, Torat ha'ola, riba Torah achat l'chol ha'olin. The Torah says there's one rule for everything that's brought on the Mizbeach, shim alu lo yardu. If it goes up, it never comes down. So meaning, even though the animal's puzzle, no one's getting a kapara for this, they might be getting karis for this, but you burn the animal on the mizbeach. And all we're proving from here is that putting above, below is a psul, just like all the other psulim. Now continues the Braita though, we're in the middle still. Yachal shani marbe, I might think that we can include every animal, according to Rabbi Shimon, even afarovea. Rovea, remembers an animal that was used for sexual relations, or nirva. Or muktzah. Remember, muktzah is an animal that was set aside for avodah zarah. Or nevad, an animal that actually was done for worship avodah zarah. Or etnan, which is exchanged for prostitution. Thank you. Mechir, which is the money of prostitution. Va'kalayim, if an animal was a mixed breed. Or treifa, or yotze dofen, it came out cesarean section, which none of these are supposed to be brought on the mizbeach. So how do you know that if you brought one of these carbonot by mistake, no one knew it, right? And they shechted the animal, and then they put it on the mizbeach, and then someone comes and says, "Oh my God, don't use that animal. It was a client." How do you know that you take it off the mizbeach? Talmud zot, right? This. So zot is a miyad. Only this. So Torah includes everything. Zot excludes some things. Says Gemara, how do you know what to include and what to exclude? Why do you exclude these animals that are the animal's puzzle, and you included all the earlier cases where there was a psul in the avoda? Then it says the Gemara, because marbaniyat elo shayeh psulam bekodesh, right? All the things we excluded were things that were kosher animals. You brought them to the Beis Hamikdash and did something wrong. It became tameh. You had a wrong machshava. You put the blood in the wrong place. It went outside the chutz of the clan, but it came as a proper animal. Unlike Rovea, Nirva, Avodah Zarah, all of those which the animal itself was puzzle. Motzaei et elo shelo yeyu psulim bekodesh. Now, the proof from this whole Braita was Katani Mia. What you see from this Braita is the case of Hanitanim lemata shenitanan lemala. Right? You put the blood on the bottom when it's supposed to be done on top, or the opposite. Lemala shenitanan lemata. Below poly Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda didn't raise his hand and say, "Wait a second, I don't disagree about those cases because it's kosher." Right? My taima, lav mishum de kolte mizbeach. You see from here, it's because the mizbeach is kolate, ushma min lo yaspan. You see that even though, like Rabbi Yochanan said, that it's not in the right place, even though it's not in the right place, it's still, you can't redo the carbon. So that is one proof, okay? Now says Reb Eliezer, we're at the bet, which is like 8 to the last of the narrow lines, says Reb Eliezer, I have another question which is relevant to this, which is what about Mizbeach HaPnimi Mikadesh Psulin Mai? Right? Remember, if you put something that is supposed to be done, let's say, on the outside Mizbeach, and you go put it on the inner Mizbeach, can you take it off the inner Mizbeach and put it on the outside Mizbeach? That's possible. Or do you say, wait a second, once you place it on any Mizbeach, it's collate, like with the blood. The Mizbeach absorbs it, meaning it's done. You can't redo it. So what's the halacha? If you by mistake put the limbs of an animal on the inner Mizbeach, right? Where am I? Can you take it off? Or is it mikadesh, meaning does it make it separate or unusable? So come on, where am I? Sorry, it wasn't Mizbeach mikadesh psulim, sorry, let me just change. What's the bet? I think I have a Gersa here. Hold on. Where's our bet, Ethel? Oh, so sorry. It's a statement. I take it back. Rabbi Lezer is not asking a question. He says a comment. Mizbeach panimi mikadesh psulim. Okay, I read the word "my" in the wrong place. The mizbeach panimi is mikadesh psulim, meaning it's a statement. If you take the animal that's supposed to be on the mizbeach hachitzon and put it on the mizbeach panimi, it becomes kodesh, meaning you can't take it off and put it on the mizbeach hachitzon. Ask the Gemara, my kamashman, what? Why is that a chiddush? Because the Mishnah that we just quoted said, if you put above what was below and inside what was outside, so it equated both of them. Tanina, we learned hanitan bifnim b'chutz. Says where it's true, but that is not enough. Because ime hatam, if we only had that source, I would have thought hanimili dam. That's only referring to the blood. If you take the blood that should have been done outside, inside, it no longer can be redone. Why is blood different than meat? Because blood is dechazile, right? Remember that sometimes you put blood on the inner mizbeach. Aval, something that, let's say you'd never put on the inner mizbeach, let's say komets, right? Let's say the komets of a mincha. The lo chazile, which you never are supposed to put in that place, emalo kemashmalan, that even this case would be kolate, it would be kodesh by the inner mizbeach, and of course the outer mizbeach. Meitvei, I ask him, what about the following Braita? The Braita says, let's say you take ketoret zara, you take foreign ketoret, meaning not kodesh ketoret, not ketoret that's supposed to go on the mizbeach. Sha'allah legabe mizbeach, says the Mishnah, says the Braita, sorry, tered. You take it down. Why do you take it down? Why don't you say, oh, it's already on the mizbeach, let me leave it there. She'ein lecha mikadesh psulim, nothing in the Beit HaMikdash would mikadesh, something that's pasul, elal mizbeach hachitzon, right, bira'oilo. Only in the mizbeach hachitzon, in something that's supposed to go on the mizbeach. So this Braita very clearly sounds like if you do the wrong thing, it only matters if you do it in the mizbeach hachitzon, not the mizbeach hapnimi. Says the Gemara now, the second to last narrow line, chitzon in pnimi lo. The Mishnah, the Braita clearly says the outside mizbeach is kolate, absorbs things, but the pnimi doesn't. Says Gemara, you have to explain this differently. Tritzachi. You have to answer it or explain it this way. Ketoret zara. If you have ketoret that's foreign, meaning it's not supposed to be there, she'alta lemizbeach hachitzon, that was put on the mizbeach hachitzon tered, she'ein mizbeach hachitzon mekadesh psulim ela hara'oilo. Because the mizbeach hachitzon, it's not saying because only the mizbeach hachitzon is mekadesh psulim. It's that the mizbeach hachitzon is only mekadesh psulim that are ra'oilo, meaning since you never put ketoret on the mizbeach hachitzon, it's not because you put on the mizbeach. So you can take it, you have to take it down. However, now this is what we're adding, the hapnimi, the mizbeach hapnimi, bein ra'oilo, bein she'ein ra'oilo, will become mikudash. So if you put anything, even the wrong thing on mizbeach hapnimi, although of course you're not yotze your mitzvah, you can't redo that thing because the mizbeach has enough kedusha to affect as it already done. As for in my time, because high ritzpah, high klisharet. Because if you think about it, and this is a very interesting answer, the mizbeach hachitzon is essentially the ritzpah. It's essentially the floor of the Beit HaMikdash. And the mizbeach hapnimi is a klisharet. Why? Because if you recall, although the Torah, the Mishkan, they had a mizbeach, when they went to the Beit HaMikdash, they did not have the same mizbeach as the Mishkan, right? They had a much, much bigger mizbeach in every time. In Shlomo's time, in Yecheskel's town, right? Because obviously the Mizbeach was very small in the Mishkan. So they had a new Mizbeach, but the new Mizbeach was not one of the essential Kli Sharet. The essential Kli Sharet were like the Aron and the Shulchan and the Menorah and the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the Mizbeach HaZahav. So unlike the Mizbeach HaZahav, which is itself a Kli Sharet, meaning it was a Kli that was made specifically for service, the outside Mizbeach did not have the same level of Kedusha. And therefore, what's placed on the outside Mizbeach does not become Kodesh automatically, unless it's ra'oi to be put on the Mizbeach, like blood or things like that. But Ketorah does it. The Mizbeach HaPnimi, everything that touches it becomes out of bounds. So that's the difference, and that's how we explain it. Okay,
Everything
let's...
that touched it, what happens to it? As out of bounds?
everything that touches out of bounds and can no longer be done, right? So remember, let's say you put blood on the Mizbeach HaPnimi, you can't catch up that blood and put it back on the outside Mizbeach. Once it touches the Mizbeach, it's out of bounds, it's out of limits to be used again.
What does that mean, out of bounds?
You can't reuse it. It's puzzle. It's collate is the word we use. The Mizbeach absorbs it, and it can never be separated, say, from that Mizbeach. So it can never be done elsewhere. That's the halacha. Says the Mishnah.
I understand that. Once the blood is concrete, how could you even collect it? How did you even think? Well, why would someone have a thought that he could wipe up the blood and then put it somewhere else?
So try the experiment at home. I would drop a quart of blood on the floor. If you go right away and use your hands, you can soak up enough of that blood to put on the mizbeach. Like I mean, of course, blood is thicker than water, but even liquids, you don't need that much to put on the mizbeach. You act right away. You can pick it up from the floor. It's not porous. The floor of the Beit HaMikdash, right? It's stone. And so no, I mean there might be. I mean, eventually things will go down. But
I don't know about that. I just don't know about that. I still remember an experiment we were doing in research lab, and the blood spilled out of the centrifuge, and that was unretrievable. Just flew out of the centrifuge.
I wouldn't use it.
Really this big.
But it's certainly on a table. Anyways, that's the case. Says the Mishnah. Well, what about the ramp? I mean, the ramp is very retrievable, right? The ramp is just one solid piece of metal, or not metal, stone, right? So if you put it on the ramp, you could go at the bottom, put a bucket, and catch it all up in that space.
If whatever rolls down, but some is absorbed in the ground. It's something, so you can kind of maybe something that rolls into a pool at the corner at the base, but some of it absorbs the blood. It's absorbed into the floor. It's absorbed into the stone. Blood is, and then you have to scrub it out with bleach, perhaps, in order to clean the floor or the stone pavement, whatever.
100%. But you might have only needed a small amount. But even the small amount would not be kosher because once it touches the mizbeach, it can no longer be separated halachically from that mizbeach. Let's do the Mishnah because this is a really, really interesting and important Mishnah, which of course we've covered many times. But this Mishnah goes into the basic halacha of pigul. So remember, the basic outline is that pigul, the Torah says, if you do a karban liyom hashlishi, a shlam, lo yetzeh, it doesn't work, right? And we're going to learn tomorrow's daf, but we've talked about this before. That's not referring to actually eating it on the third day. It's referred to thinking about eating it on the third day. There's two categories of pigul, of machshava. One is if you do the karban, and when we say do the karban, we mean any of the four first steps. So shchita, kabbalah, holacha, and zrika. Slaughtering it, accepting it, walking, or sprinkling it. If you do any of those things with the thought that you're going to do something, I'll tell you what the something is in a second, either in the wrong time, that's called chutz l'zmano, and it's pigul, or chutz l'mkomo in the wrong place, that's puzzle but not pigul. Now, what is do that thing? So we're going to derive that thing means eating it. And eating it means either that a human eats it or the mizbeach eats it, right? The mizbeach eats blood and the mizbeach eats parts, right? Humans only eat parts, just to be clear. And they eat different parts than the mizbeach, right? So says the Mishnah now, hashochet zevach, you shech the carbon, any carbon, lizrok damo b'chutz, with an intention, you didn't do it. You thought later today, I'm going to sprinkle the blood in tzvat, somewhere else. Oh, miktzat dama b'chutz, not all of it, even some of the blood. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. I'll do some here. I'll bring some home to my grandmother and do it there, right? That's chutz. Or you say lahaktir emurim b'chutz. I'm going to burn the parts of the animal that go on the mizbeach outside the Beit HaMikdash. Oh, miktzat emurim b'chutz, or some of the emurim outside. Or you think I'm shechting it, le'achol b'saro b'chutz. I'm going to eat the basar outside of the Beit HaMikdash, where I'm not allowed to. O kazayit mi b'saro b'chutz, or a little bit, a kazayit of the basar. O le'achol kazayit mi or ha'alya, or I'm even going to eat a kazayit of the skin of the tail, right? The or is like the leather that goes on the tail of the animal. So that was very tasty. B'chutz, pasul. All those cases are possible, but because the thought is to do it in the wrong place, ein bo karet. But if you have a thought to do it in the wrong time, so let's read now 3 lines from the bottom. Lizrok damo limachar, I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow, or mixat damo limachar, or some of the blood, or lahakdir murav limachar, I'm going to burn the parts tomorrow, oh, some of the parts, or mixat murav limachar, or I'm going to be lechol b'saro limachar, assuming it's not a carbon shlomim, which you're allowed to eat tomorrow, but I'm going to eat the basar tomorrow. Oh, kazayit mi b'saro lemachar. Oh, lechol kazayit mi or ha'alya lemachar. I'm going to eat a kazayit of the skin over the tail tomorrow. All of these cases, pigul v'chayavin alav karet. So if you have a machshava about the blood, sprinkling the blood, burning the parts, or eating the part you're supposed to eat, if it's the wrong time, it's pasul. That's right. If it's the wrong time, it's pigul. If it's the wrong place, it's pasul. And we are going to discuss this a lot more tomorrow. Of course, we've had this before. We're going to discuss this a lot more tomorrow. Specifically, we're going to start with the question of why we mention the fat of the tail, right? Not the fat of the tail, the skin of the tail, right? Is that, because remember, the aliyah is often brought on the mizbeach. So the question is that telling me that something that usually is brought on the mizbeach that was eaten by a person is going to make it pigol, or is it not telling us that? And we will discuss that tomorrow morning. God willing, at 7:45 a.m. So Miriam, you're going to the airport then?
Oh my gosh.
Okay. You're muted very much. Ken or James, are either of you available at 7:45 tomorrow morning?
Unlikely.
Yeah, so I'm going to be going to the airport, and I'm basically going to spend the whole day at the airport waiting for my flight.
But you're going before 7:45, I gather.
Yeah, no, I'm going at 7:45. Talia's
that's-
flight is at 10. My flight is at 5:45 p.m. I'm gonna go to the lounge, so if you do decide to do it later, I'll be very happy to join.
Well, can anyone else do it later? Well, so James, you're on 7:45, you think?
Not AM, no. Don't count on me for
Not
AM.
AM. Ken, what about you? Are you here?
Yeah, but I probably have to leave early to go to shul.
What about we do it at 11 a.m. or 12?
Can anyone do that? Any of the others on this call?
I can do whenever.
Thank you, Nava.
I don't know. I have a lot of work to do in the day. I don't know if I can just
Okay,
break
I
the
guess
day.
we'll
I don't know
keep
if
the
I can
original
do-
time. Miriam,
What
we'll
time
post
you-
it.
What?
Maybe we'll get it posted. I can ask, does it get posted right away or it's not? Do they put it on YouTube?
No, because you need an admin to go in and take it and post it. So
Right.
you'll be replaced by somebody else if you don't.
Oh, there you go. I don't like that. Okay. Well, I guess.
What time is your flight, Miriam?
My flight is at 5:45 p.m.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I can do like up until 2 p.m. I can do it without a problem. Actually, up until 3 p.m. probably even.
Where
Ken,
you going?
does 2 o'clock work for you, Ken?
Does that one for you?
Or
I
that's
don't have
part
an
of your
answer for that
workday?
right now. I just know I've got a lot of work to do. So it depends. If I can find time during the day, perhaps. I mean, I don't know yet. I got issues to deal with my car that was smashed and a lot of things going on.
Hey,
So,
sorry.
Oy.
well, I was hit by a police car, so I'm trying to get so I mean the things
Yeah.
still trying to solve that, and I want to need a drivable car in the next few. So
I'm available all day, but I don't know if I could do it twice. That's the
So can you try it at 2 o'clock actually?
James, what's your story?
Don't. I mean, I'm 2 o'clock is more likely, but don't count on me either way.
Oy.
But it's more likely is what he said. And Ken said that if you do it in the morning, he's gonna have to leave early anyway.
But I have to leave.
So-
I have to leave early every week because it doesn't finish by 8:20. I have to be in short.
Okay, well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna try to do tomorrow morning, but Miriam, maybe we'll be in touch. We'll figure it
Okay,
out.
great. All right. Thank you.
Okay. everyone.
Shavua
Have a good
tov.
weekend.
Maybe
Shavua tov.
if you record it and keep it local, you could just text it to us.
Right. I don't know how to do that, but okay. We'll be in touch. Shavua tov.
Nava knows. She can figure it out.
No,
I'm
no,
fine.
no.
All right, bye.
Goodbye.